Today is Tuesday, giant MLB slate, coming off of a slightly profitable night and a very disappointing night. I really felt like just had the nuts to start with just Kyle Raleigh, a little two-man of Raleigh and Kellenic, who combined for 56, and then I had the 23% on Morton, who had 30. What do you have? 36 or 35? And everything was looking great. And I had Merrill Kelly with a full 5-man San Diego stack, and San Diego with a million walks and hit by pitches in the first 2 innings, couldn't get anything going. Then Machado gets hurt, and literally just all game long just couldn't get anything going, which is baseball. But it felt like one of those nights where it's like, oh, this could be something when you're in the top 50 and you've only had 4 players gone and you've got everybody left and the Coors game is basically over. It feels like you got a shot. But so be it. That's 2 in a row though that I felt like we had a really the last week on Friday was a really good shot. So hopefully I'm moving in the right direction. Hopefully you guys are doing the same as well. Sheets, how did you do? And then let's jump in the slate.
I had better hitters than you, but I had Peralta instead of Morton as my second pitcher, along with Kelly. So that was why I didn't make it. I almost made the money anyway. But then that last run or so that Kelly gave up kind of dropped me out. And Oakland shut Arizona down the last 4 innings. After Arizona was
an incredible bullpen.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they obviously got Eckersley back, apparently.
Yeah, seriously. Well, today's you've looked through this. This is a tough slate, no?
Yeah, I guess. I have a pretty clear idea of what's good, but okay. I'm pretty sure that everybody else is going to agree with me. So that's going to be the issue.
Yeah, I guess that's where we run into the thing. So let's do it. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it from the beginning. We got your Yankees in Toronto.
Ooh, and by the way, I was in some serious shape real early. I had all those Yankees hit the home runs. I had Calhoun and Judge. Yeah, I was off to it, and I had the Kirby fully rolling along. I was catching for 100,000 for a good 20 minutes.
Come on! You didn't do the early screenshots. See, for the rest of us, it's a jinx. I feel like when you do it, it tends to work out.
Yeah. But that kind of faded away eventually. So Yankees, Toronto. All right. So Gausman and Herman. I don't really have much. I guess Gausman has to be sort of in play, but I just don't have him as one of my top guys. And as far as the hitting goes, I'm getting to a little bit of Toronto. It's kind of like I guess a pivot, I guess you could call it, I suppose. So that's pretty much all I have. I have a little bit of exposure, at least projected exposure to Toronto. I'm not quite getting to Gausman as far as the pitching goes.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have some Gausman. I actually want to take a quick look at it, just to see if there's any overall versus team BVP, because. And by the way, a quick shout out to Eric Johnson for calling the Cardinals early in the day.
The Cardinals.
You know what? Hey, it worked.
They only scored 18 runs though.
They only scored 18 runs, and they did it in a way that literally everybody had 20 plus fantasy points. So absolutely a shout out to Eric Johnson. I was completely wrong on that one. Look, that's what's the crazy thing about baseball though, is you could be completely wrong and still have a great chance to win. You know what I mean? It's not like there weren't other ways to get there, but it just would have been nice to have the team with 18 runs, I guess. But shout out to Eric Johnson. Great job. I don't know where he ended up on his tournaments and everything, but I know he was.
But also say, by the way, that Peralta didn't give up that many fantasy points.
No, right. By the time Peralta came out, actually, it was only I don't think anybody except for one guy had more than 10 fantasy points or something like that in the 6th inning.
He just didn't get any of his own, but he didn't give up that many.
But then you got into the infielders pitching and stuff like that. It was not pretty. Which, by the way, you had the same thing in Boston, by the way, with Seattle. They went 0 for 3 against the third baseman in the 9th inning. That was kind of frustrating. All right. Anyway, so this game, look, Peralta has a reasonable history versus the lineup they're facing.
Gausman, you mean?
Gausman, excuse me. What's weird is that apparently Aaron Judge hits a home run or a double, or he strikes out every time against Gausman. But mostly the strikeout rate is extremely high. Not extreme, a little over 33% against this lineup. I'm not saying that you should put that to everything, but I do believe Gausman's really good, especially against righties. And I think that he has got to be in play for me on this slate. And I actually don't mind I don't want to stack the Blue Jays. Maybe I actually don't. I don't like stacking against the Yankees in general because their bullpen's so good. But I do think the Blue Jays are like an interesting, like maybe a mini stack or something. They've kind of underperformed, but there is so much power in this lineup, and you've got some speed in there as well. Maybe I use them as a complimentary stack in one of my bigger buy-ins tonight. I could see that. I could see that definitely being something I do today. So I'm going to keep Toronto on my list more as a mini stack. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe I will get to Gausman eventually. Right now, he's just kind of on the outside looking in, but we'll see.
Yeah. And let's see. We move on to you got Boston next.
Yeah.
All right. I'll jump real quickly if you don't mind on this one. Certainly is good hitting weather. It's 75 degrees again with the winds blowing out to right center. We saw Seattle, and we saw George Kirby, by the way, sort of under the radar because all the other guys had good nights. But George Kirby was awesome last night against them.
Sure was.
He pitched really, really well. He's just a really good pitcher. So this is my really absolutely no reason to play him because I'm mostly going to stack against him. I'm going to stack Seattle today. There's pretty much no question that I will have at least some Seattle stacks. The thing is, Pavetta's always been pretty good against righties. And as you were pointing out yesterday, which I didn't think it mattered as much, what about the lefties? Where are the lefties for these Seattle guys? And there aren't many of them that you really desperately want to play. Cal Raleigh, a switch hitter, all that stuff. If he hits another 2 home runs, I'll be very happy with that. However, I don't want to just cross out Pivetta yet. I don't look. He's had some rough outings, no question. He's 6,600 against a very, very streaky offense that does have strikeouts in it. But J.P. Crawford is now leading off, not batting ninth. Colton Wong has been one of the worst hitters in baseball for the past 3 years. He's in the lineup. You expect he'd be in the lineup. Maybe he won't be because he's been so terrible. There's a path for Pivetta to get out of here. And this sounds crazy. This is going to be look. This is a 150 type of play. This is a guy you get 5% of in that, or maybe even a little bit more. But I don't mind the idea of taking a shot on Pivetta. I don't think I'm going to get to Castillo because of the matchup. And it was funny because playing Kirby not slightly smaller, but there was less options yesterday. It was very all over the place. So maybe if you do want to just take Castillo, we've been playing at over 10K as chalk all year. And just because he's in Boston, we're going to completely avoid it. So I actually weirdly like Seattle and like the Seattle. I like Seattle, and I have mild interest for large field tournaments in both pitchers.
Yeah, so I have interest in both stacks actually. One of them, the more obvious, obviously being Seattle. They're probably going to be pretty chalky, I guess, after Coors. And I have a little bit of interest in Boston just as a low-owned thing to do. They certainly don't rate as well as a lot of others, but again, I was looking for a couple of low-owned ones, and yeah, Castillo's obviously really good, so it's not exactly the greatest idea in the world, but just so I do have them written down. Mm-hmm. And I'm not getting to either of the pitchers, so like Seattle is kind of the very obvious stack, and Boston is kind of like a low-owned dart throw.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you got it. Yeah. So we got the Mets and Tampa Bay next. Okay, Sheets. What are you gonna do with Verlander?
I guess play him. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, I have him as one of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 SP2s. And I say SP2s means the second pitcher I'm playing. You know what I mean? Like people think like SP2 means like you're cheap. It's just like anyway. I have him as definitely playable. I'm not particularly afraid of Tampa. I'm more afraid, like you said, I'm more afraid of Verlander himself than Tampa. I mean, if Verlander's like bringing Verlander stuff or whatever, then Tampa is just as good as anybody else to attack. But yeah, I mean, Verlander hasn't exactly been the Verlander of old, and I'd love to see a little bit more, but I think he's playable. I mean, I'm not going to run to the windows and pound him in the big buy-in, to make sure I have him. But I think he's in play. Yeah. And I'm not getting to any of the hitting.
Yeah, I actually just think you're right. I think you're right. I think I might even. I don't know. I'm very curious where he ends up at the end of the day, but I do like the fact that you're getting a fairly low. It's just there's a lot of pitching options today. And that's why the Gausman thing will probably, like early on, it's looking like there's going to be some ownership there because he just put up 500 against the Yankees last time. Verlander is looking like he's not going to get a ton of love. I think that because of all of that, I think that it's totally cool to play Verlander here. Also, people like see that Garrett Cole just got hit again by Tampa Bay, and they see that as like a similar thing. Well, Tampa Bay doesn't face Verlander like 19 times a year, you know?
Yeah, listen, Tampa owns Cole. I mean, that's something else.
Well, he owns them, but Cole also has like some 15 strikeout games with like one hitters against them. Like it's a weird mix. Anyway, and just for DFS purposes, I think that we do I think we do want to play some Verlander. I'm not getting to the Mets at all with the long relief thing. You get to anything there?
No.
I do want to point out Tommy Pham may in fact be batting cleanup, and he's 2,300 on DK. Take that for what you will.
They'll just walk him or something.
It's good luck. That guy's not going to let you walk him. he's going to say no, thank you. But yeah, I think that's pretty much that one. Why don't you start off the Milwaukee, St. Louis?
Yeah, so Jordan Montgomery is the clarity of the day, I guess. Cheap enough, definitely, decent spot. I think he'll probably get owned, but he's definitely if you want to have a construction where you pay down $7,400 for a pitcher, I think it's perfectly fine. I like him. Wade Miley, I'm not getting to, and I'm not getting to any of the hitting here. So for me, it's Montgomery or nothing.
A lot of respect for Montgomery by Vegas here. It seems like a nightmare to try and put a lefty against this. Every time I just look at the Cardinals roster, I just think God, that's got to be a rough one for the lefties. It hasn't always been the case this year, and they did just score 18 runs. I also don't like stacking against Wade Miley, so these are all the reasons why I'm probably not going to end up stacking them. But of course, if you wanted to do a mini with three guys who historically just crush left-handed pitching, like Goldschmidt, Arenado, and you could even throw not that he crushes, but Dylan Carlson is 2,500. Juan Yepes is 31. Contreras is really good against lefties. He's 44. I think a mini stack is definitely something I'm considering, but it's definitely not a priority. And I like Montgomery, but I look around at this pitching slate, and it does feel, I don't know, maybe I've got it as more loaded than other people do, but I do think that's probably the only thing that keeps me off of Montgomery here.
For what it's worth, and this is like something you look at more than a lot of people. Last time he faced this team, he scored 35 fantasy points. Montgomery.
White Miley?
No, Montgomery. Montgomery.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually,
it was like opening day or whatever, but still, 100
yeah.
pitches, 35 fantasy points, mowed them all down.
And that is literally takes everything going perfect for Montgomery. Montgomery, for him to have a game like that, you need to literally be perfect, because he in general, you're going to see him his real median is usually, or median ceiling, I guess, I don't know how you say it actually.
25.
Yeah, that's what I would be expecting with him.
In a good
also,
game.
Nice hitting day in St. Louis for what it's worth. All right, Atlanta, Texas. I'll jump in on this one real quick. So Atlanta was the other one that I couldn't really figure out what to do. I'm kind of glad that pitcher wasn't on the slate, because I would have definitely played that 4K pitcher in some lineup.
What happened?
Atlanta scored 12.
Ooh.
So that was a big one. Like a Dayton Dunning in long relief, basically another bullpen-ish type of game. Again, not my favorite to stack, but I am absolutely always going to have some Atlanta when the matchup's even reasonable. With Schuster, I got to do a little bit more digging. It's not that I'm thinking about playing him. It's just that how much do I want to stack against him? Because this whole game feels like it could be stackable. And that's basically it. I have Atlanta and Texas, but I'm going to take a quick look to see if the roof's open. Texas is really bad about letting you know in advance, unlike Arizona. So let's just see if the Rangers roof is open today. If it opened up for about 30 minutes Monday, that's not helpful. This is it's just impossible to know. Oh, it looks like it's closed today. That makes me a little tiny bit less interested, but I still think this is both stacks are extremely viable. I would lean Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm not getting too much here. Are you sure that not that it matters, but I don't Dunning. I don't know if he's going to be an actual starter or just opener. Or I don't know what's going on with it. It just says probable starter.
They're out of starters. They've lost 3 of them. That's why that other kid was up last night.
He's cheap and he keeps the ball down. But I mean, I just think I don't think you need to do that on today's slate. I think there's plenty of better pitchers to play.
For what it's worth, he's 5,300 and he's what, 3 out of his last 5 starts been over 15, had 20, 19 and 22. So maybe not the worst idea, but yeah, he's going to throw. It's really hard to play a guy who's going to throw like what is season high 72 pitches. But I hear like it's a possible thing. If you were telling me he had a leash of 85, I would probably just consider making a gamble. But overall, I think that makes me just like Atlanta a little bit more. Although Texas's bullpen seems to be decent enough. Well, better than their numbers anyway. Sorry, go ahead, Sheets. You can start with the next one.
Yeah. So 2 pitchers here that everybody's not exactly sure what you're getting with these guys anymore. Bieber, yeah, he flashed some brilliancy. I mean, great home against Detroit. You know what I mean? So I don't know where that leaves him in the mix. I'm probably just not getting there. And then on the other side, the Lance Lynn, I know people play him from time to time. I just don't. I just not seeing it. I have him. Okay, where do I have him? I have him as a very low owned dart throw. You know what I mean? Like if I play like 30, 40 lineups, I probably will grab a couple of him. With that said, I also am getting to Cleveland as one of my sort of priority non-Coors in Seattle stacks. So I'm kind of interested in this game. I'm curious to hear what the weather is and your overall take on this. I haven't played Cleveland like all season.
Probably been for the best since.
Yeah, I know.
This spring start, nice goals.
So what do you like here?
Well, oddly, there's a pretty decent history between Lance Lynn and this team, and they've kind of owned him for what it's worth. I do have Lynn as a potential cheapie as a dart throw. I don't see why it's all that different than Montgomery, except for that Milwaukee has a high K rate versus lefties and Cleveland has a low K rate versus righties. I do think that the upside is probably usually, I would say, higher for Lynn in this matchup. Maybe you'd say Montgomery. I think Bieber is the best play on the slate right now. I don't really understand why no one will play him and all this stuff. It's the White Sox too. Like, give me a freaking break. What are you guys afraid of here? I'll tell you what they're afraid of. They're afraid of the total because it's 77 degrees. And by the way, I know it's not like Wrigley, but the other stadium that gets like one of the most affected is the White Sox. But that's partly because there's more wind in Chicago, obviously. But they get really affected by it, and it's 77 degrees and 13-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to right center field. I am totally fine with embracing the variance and taking Shane Bieber at 5% ownership when I feel like he should. There's a different path where he's like the mega chalk on this slate. It's really just the weather that's going to keep me off him. And as I mentioned with Kirby yesterday, not that he was the best scorer, you have that good of a pitcher. I'm willing to to eat it. I just want to take a quick look at Bieber because he's had a pretty decent history against the White Sox, just like a pretty sizable history. And I'm doing a little BVP stuff just to see what I've got because there's a lot of good pitching options in the slate. 30% K rate with almost like a 3% walk rate, which is, you gotta love that. I'm very, very high on Bieber, and I am probably. You're going to hear sharp people later in the day, in my opinion, say more about Bieber, but
hopefully not.
I hope not. But I'm just telling you, it's the weather is the reason. I am totally okay to embrace that, and I kind of like your Cleveland idea a little bit. I came onto it a little bit just because of that weather. So I would say Cleveland more is a mini stack for me, but I definitely can see getting to them today. I think it's kind of an interesting play there. But I'm into taking these. Look, if you give me the guy who might be a top 5 pitcher in baseball and no one's playing him like it because he's just pitching his way into the season, I'm just going to gamble on those plays almost all the time, especially when you have such insane mega chalk in some other spots that I don't think necessarily are as awesome as people think.
Well, let's get to one of them.
Yeah.
So Houston against Chicago, you have Christian Javier as the top projected player. I mean, given his price on the slate, he has the best value score, however you look at it, and unsurprisingly, the public is noticing. And looking somewhere between 35 and 40% ownership, if you believe early ownership projections. And in this particular case, I think that's going to be sort of where it comes in. Now, it is going to be a very big slate, so in general, 35, 40% ownership with anybody on a big slate requires, a real lack of other options. And we've already gone over a couple decent ones. Listen, we haven't gotten to even Kershaw yet. We had like a Bieber and Gausman and Verlander. I mean, these are like some of the best pitchers like ever. You know what I mean? And you're telling me that Javier, you just have to play him. Now again, he's a very, very good play, very strong play, probably the best play. But if what are you going to do? You're going to play him with I don't know, him with Montgomery with the Reds or something. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how you can do that in GPPs. I think it'd be eating way too much ownership. But nonetheless, I do like it. I wonder if Steele is like a ridiculously like amazing but terrible play. I'll just let's throw it out there. I'm not getting to any of the hitting, but overall, Javier to me is the best rated play, and I figure get your opinion on Steele and anything else.
Yeah, I can't ever agree that there's any reason why he should be 40% owned here. I don't care what the results are. Right. Just take a look last night. Valdez looked like he was going to put up like 45. Like he was just crushed. He was mowing down, and then you run into one bad inning.
And that's it. And
I'm just saying, like the Cubs, like there are strikeouts. I'll take plenty of guys against the Cubs, but when everyone else is going towards them and they're the third best offense in baseball, maybe we should reconsider, especially like when you have a guy on the other side who's probably got I think has a much higher ceiling than Javier does. Maybe not much higher, but higher. So I actually think that, Justin Steele is 6-0 with a 1.8 ERA, and he's going to be 1% owned, and Christian Javier is going to be 40% owned. I just don't see a world where I can talk myself into that. It's baseball. It doesn't mean like it's just it's getting way out of control with these matchups. And yes, I agree. Javier probably scores more points here more often. Do I really think that Justin Steele's median is 10 fantasy points here? Am I missing something? Is there an injury I don't know about? Like, I really don't understand it. They announced that they're not going to let him pitch as much as he's been pitching. He's even got a longer, like, they both have a leash, but, like, he's probably even got a longer leash. Like, I don't know. To me, when it comes to these situations, Javier's on my list, and so is Steele. I will probably be well below the field on Javier. I just don't see any reason you need to make that kind of decision on this kind of slate with this much talent up at the top. I think the odds of him being the highest scoring pitcher are extremely low. It doesn't mean that I don't like him. Like if he was showing up at 20% ownership, I would definitely be talking about him, But when you get into the 40 range, there's just too many other good arms. And if there was none, I would be playing him. But there's plenty of other ways to go, including the guy on the other side. So no hitting for me in this one, but I will have interest in both pitchers. I have interest in both pitchers, but I will probably have the same ownership of both, which means maybe like 15%. So being well over the field on Steele and well under the field on Javier.
So this is going to be, just rinse, repeat. But Cincinnati and Colorado are two of the best hitting options on the slate. The pricing almost never reflects teams' actual chances of doing well in Colorado, including Colorado. And you have to make a decision of whether the ownership is enough to get you off of it. But certainly Cincinnati and Colorado look like strong options. And I'll tell you, so far, we haven't really come across the greatest hitting options yet. We talked about Seattle and then maybe a little Cleveland. Aside from that, nothing's really stood out quite yet. So, listen, fade them at your own risk. But if you want to do something like Bobby and play like Steele and Bieber, for example, like as a combination, then you can play whoever you want. You know what I mean? Like if in fact you like them. But yeah, I think Cincinnati and Colorado are very, very strong.
Yeah, it's going to be, there's almost a 0% chance that I end up stacking teams at this ownership, but that doesn't mean I won't do a 3-man or a 4-man. By the way, a lot of 4-4 winners last night, for what it's worth. I do think that maybe like I'll go up to 4 because so you have this guy who's been horrible in the minor leagues for the Reds, which is a pretty major thing to say in every way. Anybody with any talent usually is already up on the team if they're on the Reds. So it is hard to not want to try and pick on this situation. It's also hard to not want to pick on the other side against Chase Anderson, which I always love to pick on. So I definitely will have pieces of this game. I just can promise that I'm not going to 5-man stack in any large buy-ins. It just, even with getting off the board with pitching, I just don't think I can talk myself into it, because to play those pitchers over the other guys and ask for them to be that much better, it's just still hard to, like, even if they are better, they're going to be by fractional points usually. So I don't know that I could even get to a full 5-man of either of these teams on this kind of a slate. Like, even without, like you said, there aren't other things. Although I do like the Atlanta, Texas, and the Seattle situations, but I just am having a really hard time, unless maybe if you were playing Cleveland, like what if you did a 4-4 with Cincinnati and Cleveland, or Colorado and Cleveland, or a 4 for Cleveland and a 2-2 in this game, or a 5-2-1 with 2 from Cincinnati, 1 from Colorado, something like that. I could definitely do, but I can't do the full stack at everybody going to be like 20% owned in the whole game. Just not for me.
Yeah.
All right. What do you got with your boy Brady Singer against, what happened to our guy Sheets? He fell off the face of the cliff.
Off the cliff and off the face of the earth. But you know what? He is good enough. He is good enough to screw up our order. We had it. We were just freaking. We were rolling along.
I know, it's my bad.
And I was gonna say that I wasn't gonna say anything. And Brady Singer, that's how bad he is. You know what I mean? Like, he got us off of our streak of getting the game.
He jumped back over to Oakland, Arizona. Sorry about that.
Dang. But okay. So Arizona, Oakland. No thanks for the pitching, and take this for what it is. I have like a little bit of Oakland in initial builds, just as kind of something to do. And that's pretty much my entire comment on this game. No pitching, and some Oakland is just showing up.
It's weird that I'm ending up with I don't want like game stacks, but like you keeps running into these horrible pitchers against each other. I like both offenses here. I think that you're gonna, and what's crazy is that like last night, I don't know if that's affecting it, but like you're getting like almost no ownership in this game. Nobody at 10% on either side. Give me the whole game. Oakland, worst bullpen in baseball history, even though they were good last night. Mueller, I actually think he's like really bad. I don't, I understand that he's a prospect and he's looked really, really, really bad, and he can't find the strike zone. It feels like a good spot for Arizona. I will remind everybody it is a park downgrade for Arizona, which I still think makes a difference. Doesn't make all the difference. But Tommy Henry, then you get into on the other side. I think he's bad too, but not quite as bad, and there's a better bullpen behind him. But I can definitely get myself into talking to some Oakland. Arizona will have like slightly more ownership than Oakland. I'm in on this one. This is probably my favorite spot to try to go for the wild full stack, or the 5-man stacks, because I maybe other than Seattle, even though I still think that is kind of interesting. I really think I could talk myself into just going after both sides of this game. But Arizona, maybe Arizona especially, but I mean, you're going to get like Carlos Perez batting, the top 5 in the order at 2,700 at catcher. That's going to look really good. I feel like Oakland might end up being more owned than people think, because if they put Jordan Diaz at the top, he's 2.3K also. And I'm making a little notes for what I'm doing for value. And Oakland I have as like incredible value depending on how their lineup shakes out. But Diaz could be there, Perez, even Ruiz is still cheap enough considering he steals a base every time, even whether it's a lefty or righty. Aguiar is 2,600. Laureano at 3. Everybody in this lineup I can make a case for. So I am in on both sides of this game.
So with Kansas City, San Diego, as you kind of alluded to, I mean, Brady Singer is really cheap at 6,100, and he's got 7 starts on the board. Three of them you'll take. At that, again, like, not that all 3 of them were in San Diego, right? But he's still a young guy, and he certainly can struggle. I consider him as a play today as an okay kind of late swap play. That if you're struggling and you whatever it is and you need to kind of just get off the board, just to kind of just gamble with Brady Singer. I think it's totally reasonable. I wouldn't play him pre-flop or anything like that. But certainly, listen, these young guys always have volatility, and volatility, depending on what you're looking for, you know what I mean, goes both ways. Like if you played Shane Bieber, let's say you played Shane Bieber and Kershaw, for example, right? And Bieber's like killing it, and all your Seattle stacks are murdering it. You don't want to like switch from Kershaw to Singer and up your Dodger. You know what I mean? Like you want to keep it as is. But listen, if things aren't working out and you want to screw around, yeah, I got no problem with swapping a Singer. But it's not, it's obviously it's not a good play pre-flop.
How sick would it be to play a Singer Pavetta lineup?
Right. So but that's the thing. You wouldn't do it before. Like you could play Pavetta. If you played Pavetta and got away with it, you probably pivot off a Singer at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like you play Singer, you go from Singer, and you instead maybe go to Lugo or something and find the extra 1900 or something like that. So Lugo is kind of the guy that's going to probably get some ownership. He just always does. Never really smashes or anything like that, and I guess he's fine. In that Montgomery, who's that other 7,100 guy you talked about? Range.
We have Lynn.
Lugo has a better matchup. Maybe not. I don't know.
Lugo probably has the best matchup, I think.
Yeah. So okay. So I guess he's fine.
Considering Michael Walker looked like the best pitcher in the history of baseball last night, almost threw his no-hitter.
All he does is put up ceiling. That's all he does.
Literally, he was. I mean, he was just. They were letting him kind of go a little bit there for that no-hitter.
What did he get? What do you have? Like 30?
I think at 35.
35. So Lugo looks like a good play. And I'm not getting to hit him. I'm not getting to San Diego, although I probably should. And I'm not getting Kansas City.
Yeah, it's a kind of an ugly day in San Diego. It's actually nicer hitting weather in Oakland than San Diego. So you Padres, you San Diego people who are constantly reminding me it's the best weather in the world. Just tell me, when is it? I thought it was supposed to be year round. Anyway, no Machado, I'm assuming tonight. That's a big hit to the one.
It's a big deal. I mean, if you want to take a gamble on Singer,
absolutely. You get, it's a big. Not only about just getting hits and stuff, threats in the lineup and moving the position, the thing along with walks. Like I do think that's. But you are going to get an unknown San Diego team against Singer, who's struggled in a really bad bullpen. There's wind blowing in from left, so I not much, like 6 miles an hour. But I think you could argue for the lefties in this game. You've got a really cheap Matt Carpenter. I think you could definitely make an argument for stacking San Diego, but I'm probably not going to tonight. And it's not just because they let me down last night. Just that's not my favorite game. I like the other spots we talked about a little bit better. I like the Arizona Oakland game better, I guess. And I'm not playing Lugo, whatever it's worth. As of right now, maybe he ends up in like one lineup of mine or something, but I have no plans of playing Lugo.
So you could start Philly, San Francisco.
Okay. I am going to say along with the he's going to be higher owned, but I kind of like that the Wheeler Bieber thing. And the funny part is that we know that literally we're one start removed from everybody being convinced that Wheeler was washed. This is what happens in stupid modern day sports.
Was it Wheeler or Nola? I get them confused.
No, it was Wheeler and Nola. Oh, you're right. It was Nola. It was Nola who were convinced was washed. I think Wheeler's really good. I think he's actually been very good. I always do that with those two guys.
Yeah.
He did get off to a slow start at the beginning of the year, but he's definitely picked it up. San Francisco has a lot of strikeouts in their lineup. They play in San Francisco, which helps. They also have a lineup that can be really tough at times. Last night's a good example. They can fight like a little bit, but I am siding with the Wheeler side of this thing instead of any of the bats. I actually don't think Alex Cobb is much different of a play than Lugo. I guess he's a little more expensive, but I think he's a better pitcher by a lot. But it's a nasty matchup against Philly, so I'll stay away. But I do like Wheeler quite a bit, and I sort of like the idea of instead of maybe getting some Gausman and Verlander lineups and Bieber and Wheeler, you sort of stay in that same price tier. So I don't know. I just sort of like the way those lineups look right now. I did a little messing around before and just trying to build, but that's pretty much all I have from this one. Certainly not taking any bats here.
Yeah, so I like Wheeler a lot. I have him as my one of the better plays, like right under that non-Javier tier. We'll get to Kershaw in a minute, but Wheeler, Montgomery, Verlander, some degree Lugo. Maybe I'll bump Gausman up to that tier. But yeah, I definitely like Wheeler a lot. And pretty much it. I don't really like Cobb here, and not really get into the hitting.
Yep. All right. What do you got?
Yeah. So Dodgers, Minnesota. I have Kershaw as one of the, again, part of that group. You know, Verlander, Kershaw, Wheeler. At least as far as the projections go. I mean, he's you have to pay for him. He's 11K, but he's Kershaw, and he can do it sometimes. Sometimes, not all the time. There's an 8 in there every once in a while, I guess. But in general, you can, he's probably going to get somewhere between 25 and 35 tonight. I don't know exactly where that's going to fit in, but certainly pretty strong. And if Javier puts up 25 or something like that, I don't know. So Kershaw certainly looks like he's in play, one of the top options. I'm not getting to Bailey Ober, and I'm not currently getting to the Dodgers, but I can get talked into it. I'm looking for more hitting. So if you want to try to talk me into the Dodgers, you can start. So I have Kershaw and not much else right now.
Yeah, Bailey Ober's been really good. I could care less. We saw Pablo Lopez is really good, and it took the Dodgers about two minutes to get to him last night. There is a lot of I always say this, and I always want to stress it. The way teams score runs does matter, and when you have the Dodgers still don't use their speed enough. They're starting to run a little bit more, but they have so much power throughout the lineup. Well, throughout the top 6 in the lineup, I should say. That it's just hard for me to ever not consider them a strong stack against a pitcher who's average to even slightly above average. So on a slate where you might be looking for some things, I think this is a very viable spot. I have them as the 4th ranked situation, not the 4th individual team, because I put Atlanta and Texas because I like both sides of that game, and Arizona and Oakland together. So I guess that would make them 6th. But I certainly think that they're extremely viable. Like I said, you just put anybody out there against them, you're going to get low ownership. They're always going to be expensive because they always put up numbers. What else is great about the Dodgers is their stack they have so many guys who are patient, and they walk so much, like Muncy and Freeman, even Betts to some extent, that you just keep that lineup moving over. And Will Smith has become the best catcher in baseball. I don't think it's really a whole lot of discussion about it. Maybe you could say Adley Rutschman or Perez will get it back, but I do think right now Will Smith is the best catcher in baseball. So I have the Dodgers as very interesting. To sort of sum up my thing, to go through and I love Kershaw. I have Kershaw, and I actually have Kershaw, Verlander ahead of Javier, Gausman, and I have Bieber and Wheeler ahead of both those guys as well. I may change my mind later. My spend downs would be Montgomery, Lance Lynn, Pivetta, or Singer. If I wanted to go that route, I'm not sure you need to today because there's a lot of value. The stacks I like are 1 and 1A are the 2 different games with totally different situations. Atlanta, Texas, Arizona, Oakland. I really like both those spots. I'll have exposure to both sides of the stacks. Seattle is my 3rd favorite. The Dodgers my 4th, and I'm eliminating Cincinnati, Colorado because I will only play 4 or less from Cincinnati, Colorado.
I have Javier as the top pitching option, but as far as GPPs go, I'm probably going to do something different. Something combination of Wheeler, Montgomery, Verlander, Kershaw. Probably something 2 of those 4. And then as far as stacks go, Cincinnati and Colorado look good, but I'll probably end up not playing them. I'll pick from either Seattle, Cleveland, maybe Boston even. That would be a low on one. I don't think many people are going to be trying to attack Luis Castillo.
I don't think one person who's going to do it. So
yeah,
fine.
And Toronto maybe. Maybe I'll take a shot with that.
Yeah, and I just want to reemphasize, there's a lot of good pitching options, and I'm always a fan of taking the safety because you can always differentiate for hitting. But at the same time, I don't believe that Javier and Gausman should be as much higher owned than Castillo and Steele, for example. You really can just shift these guys in and out if you want to get a little bit differentiating in your lineup. We don't need to get this creative on this slate, but we'll talk about it on small slate sometime. Sometimes the best thing to do is to do that and just leave the money on the table. You don't need to do that on this slate, obviously, but just thinking out loud here. Anyway, it's a nice slate. I'm excited for it. We've got some good stuff, and we'll be doing a golf show next.
Well, I have a question. So here let's talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
Let's say that you have what's his name, Kershaw in your lineup, and then it's let's say you had Kershaw and Bieber, for example. Okay, like something from an early game, and things are going things aren't going that great or whatever it is, and you have like one thing left to do, would you consider like pivoting from Kershaw to Wheeler and leave like 2,000 on the table?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to do it, you have to do it. I mean,
but I don't. Hold on though. But Wheeler, I don't think is going to be lower owned, but there won't be the 2,000 left on the table.
Right.
But I don't know if you would need to differentiate in that way in baseball. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
So I don't think it would make quite as much sense as it would if you could do that and get another bat. Yes, then I would definitely recommend doing it.
But that won't help you, like you were saying, because Wheeler's not even going to be lower owned, and then.
But you still need the rest of your stack to perform. That's the problem, you know.
Right.
So, it's an interesting question, though. It's something that probably is a different answer every day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck to everybody tonight. We'll see you guys live at 6, and we'll be back with